It's week number 8 of the 2024 college football season, and perhaps, if even possible, the best Saturday of the entire year. We welcome you live to College Football Today, right here on SportsGrid. He is the mastermind of the college football pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. He is OK Dubs. That is Kevin Walsh. And I am Ben Stevens. And I know I often say today is the best day of a college football campaign. And with how incredible and historic the 2024 college football season has been, it might sound unfathomable to say that this single Saturday could be the best of the season. But I really feel that could be the case. Week number 8, Joe, already off to an incredible start. A great Friday to set the stage as a small appetizer for Saturday. 2 ranked teams in action. None of that spoiler maker magic in West Lafayette as number 2 Oregon continues to roll after hammering Ohio State. They go into Purdue and hammer the Boilermakers as well. And BYU stays unbeaten. Some late night magic in Provo to come back and beat Oklahoma State with less than 15 seconds remaining. 2 of the 11 remaining undefeated teams at the FBS level stay perfect last night.
It was unbelievable, Kev, when you think about the matchup, Ben, too, as well. BYU, 41 seconds on the clock. They score. They steal the victory over Oklahoma State. Ali Gordon got involved. But BYU is undefeated. The stage is set for a marquee game and games this Saturday. SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, and the ACC, Miami and Louisville. Doesn't get better than this.
I think the key thing for me is watching Dylan Gabriel, who I put a Heisman ticket in on, kind of knowing that the Ohio State game was around the corner, thinking they could win it. They did. But if you look at Gabriel right now, the argument for him is clear. I am the quarterback on the unbeaten team in college football, and I didn't miss games like Quinn Ewers. Dylan Gabriel's argument is going to need help from these other top contenders dropping games. He individually has not been as excellent as his price suggests.
Plus 260, the number 4 Dylan Gabriel, second best, now just 30 cents behind Boise State's Ashton Jeanty, off to a historic start through 6 games for the Broncos. So now as we go from Friday into this Saturday in week number 8 of the college football campaign, we get you set for everything that you need to know. A significant Saturday on this 3rd Saturday in October in the Southeastern Conference. We've got a ranked versus ranked top 25 tilt in the Big Ten, and another Big Ten battle bright and early. ACC impactful games around that conference, and each and every week the Big 12 battles do rage on. But we start on this significant Saturday in the SEC in our top 5 tilt in Austin. The first time the number 1 team in the country in Texas has hosted a top 5 matchup in nearly 2 decades. It's number 1 Texas. It's number 5 Georgia. 4.5-point spread in favor of the Longhorns, Joe. When this line opened up in the summer, it was a near pick'em. Now Georgia is getting 4.5 points on the road. If this holds, it would be the first time for the Bulldogs as an underdog since the start of 2021. What do you make of the spread for the top 5 bout in Austin tonight?
Well, I think Texas deserves to be favored in this matchup. They dominated in the Red River rivalry as a 14.5-point favorite over Michael Hawkins and Oklahoma. They rushed for 177 yards in that matchup. We saw Quinn Ewers a little rusty coming out of the hiatus, 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and their defense is playing legit. We had concerns or maybe questions. Can they step up to the SEC type of week-to-week type of schedule from a defensive perspective, Kevin? They've answered the bell. And on the flip side, we've seen Georgia win 2 games after the loss to Alabama, but they haven't covered. Didn't cover against Auburn as a double-digit favorite, 20, 21 points, and certainly didn't cover against Miss State as 32.5-point favorites. They have something to prove offensively and defensively tonight.
You know, you mentioned the kind of the historical trend for Texas in this spot. I'll mention a recent history trend. First time Texas this season will play a team with a pulse. Go Dogs. They're going to rout this team. I don't care. The closer we get, they're going to destroy this team. The only team that has touched Kirby in 4 years plays in Alabama. It's the only team. It's Saban. It's DeBoer. It's Jalen Milroe. A little respect if you wouldn't mind. That's it. And Sark, following the Red River, has been atrocious. Year number 1, They're at home after a Red River rivalry playing Oklahoma State, laying 3.5. They lose outright. Year number 2, they win 49-0. You would think, oh, come on, that type of route? No way you don't show up next week. Whoops, Iowa State. Upset alert the entire game despite Texas laying 16. And then you go to the last season performance. Off of Red River, they take a bye and for some reason are playing a super close game to Houston despite laying 24 points. And now it's Georgia. Bark, baby.
The dogs barking today in Austin. That is what Kevin Walsh is saying. And when you see this number of 4.5, again, this would be the first game for UGA as an underdog since the start of the 2021 college football season, and a top 5 tilt to open up that year against Clemson. Georgia won that game outright. In fact, since the start of 2021, Georgia has now played 50 total football games. They have won 47. They have only lost 3, and all 3 L's against the very same team in Alabama. So, Kevin, you stack the Bulldogs up against these Longhorns. Texas, the number 1 team in the country, one of 4 teams around the nation that is averaging better than 450 yards per game offensively, putting up more than 40 points per game offensively, and limiting opponents to less than 15 points per game and 275 yards per game. How does this year's Georgia team stack up with Texas?
So, again, I look at Georgia still, to me, bar for bar, piece for piece, the best team in college football. But we will find out today. Now, home field advantage has reigned king inside these, high-level top teams in the country matchups. Texas should win this game. But again, it's why I think Georgia will reestablish what I think has been true from the beginning, that they're the best team in the sport. Like, truly, the AP poll, the Ben's top 10, if Georgia wins this game, better be ready to just shoot them up to 1. You don't have to go and rank those Big Ten teams in front of them. They're not as good. The thing with Texas, and this is kind of, I think, maybe it's a little unfair. Maybe I'm salty because they've knocked me around all season. I keep betting against them and I keep losing. But we don't have to pretend the win against Michigan is a great win because they were ranked 10th at the time that they played Michigan. Michigan is terrible this year. It's what it is. They're on their 3rd quarterback. We'll break down their ranked game later on in this show. We don't have to pretend Oklahoma's good. They're terrible. They're a home dog to South Carolina. That is very, very bad for OU. So I get it. They beat a rival by 31. Great job. I was on the Sooners. I was dead wrong. But while Texas is 6-0, what is their claim to fame on this season, Joe?
No, you're right. And to even double down on your point, Michigan's offense was completely one-dimensional, only averaging basically about 140 passing yards per game heading into that matchup with Orji and Davis Warren, right? And to Kevin's point with Michael Hawkins, they were only averaging 169 yards through the air. So it was really the rushing attacks that were more prevalent for both Michigan and Oklahoma, respectively. I break this game down a little bit differently as well. In order for Georgia to win tonight, I don't think it's Carson Beck. I think it's the rushing attack with Trevor Etienne. They're averaging a $134 on the ground. We know that goes right into the front 7 of Texas, but last year they were up to 194. They need to have that offensive balance. And then the defense for Georgia, Ben, doesn't really struggle with Jalen Milroe in terms of athleticism. Quinn Ewers is a pocket passer. I think they can get some pass rush on him, force him to work down the field, and maybe get some sacks or turnovers, and that's the key to Georgia knocking off Texas.
It is a very interesting schematic matchup, though, because there's one elite defense entering today's game in Austin, and it's not Georgia and Kirby Smart. It's Texas. Best scoring defense in the country, allowing less than a touchdown on average per game. Best total defense in America as well, less than 230 yards per game. Plenty more in that game, but now it's the 3rd Saturday in October in Knoxville. Next.
That kid on the 2-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallize Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
This week, number 8 Saturday is a significant Saturday in the SEC. It's also the third Saturday in October, which means Alabama and Tennessee. We head to Rocky Top, where 11th-ranked Tennessee hosts number 7 Alabama. The road team, a field goal plus favorite in Knoxville today. That's the Crimson Tide. And, Kev, as we get ready for this top 15 tilt at Tennessee later on this Saturday afternoon, it should be pointed out that neither of these two teams looked great in their response last week after suffering their first loss of the season in upset fashion the opening Saturday in October. Alabama survives late against South Carolina. Tennessee has to go to overtime against Florida to escape Rocky Top with a victory, courtesy of Dylan Sampson, who had all 3 touchdowns for the Vols in that matchup. The 107th all-time meeting between Alabama and Tennessee. The Crimson Tide have won 16 of the last 17, but the last one on Rocky Top, that was a Volunteers victory. How do you see this third Saturday in October playing out?
So what we are seeing is people are betting Alabama, but I think more so than people running to bet the Crimson Tide, I think people are fading Tennessee in droves. Only 3s out there now, and a 3.5 in the market as well, showing you that I think people are watching this Tennessee team, especially their most recent performances, and finding those to be far more concerning than Alabama's most recent performances. And in one respect, I understand it, because Alabama still has Milroe playing at such a high level. They have the win over Georgia, which is a whole lot more than Tennessee's accomplished this season. And Nico doesn't have the same pedigree of Jalen Milroe. Again, we joke sometimes on the desk about all this stuff, but Milroe won the SEC last year. Nico has done nothing in his career, unless you want to count the Citrus Bowl. I mean, legitimately, like, that is the biggest thing he's done in his career. He wasn't great in the win against NC State, who's terrible, or Oklahoma, who's not that good. But I still think the Vols are the side that I look to. But specifically, and maybe ironically of everything I just said, I like their team total. It's 27.5. I'm not betting on Nico. I'm betting on Josh Heupel. In his career, at Tennessee, at home, in SEC games. So I'm not going to even use the fluff cupcake games that elevates this number. Home games against SEC opponents, 36.5 points per game. I think Tennessee gets to at least 28, Joe.
It's possible. I think in order for Tennessee to win, they're going to have to go through the total of 56.5, because then that means the tempo of Josh Heupel's offense will get going. That's a cause of concern for me when I break this game down. From the series perspective, Alabama's dominated 16 of the last 17. They won last year as an 8.5-point favorite in Tuscaloosa, 34-20. Last time they were in Knoxville, they lost 52-49. When you look at Tennessee's offense, Ben, over the last 3 weeks, right? First 3 weeks, they were well over 5 yards per carry. Last 3 weeks, they've been under 5 yards per carry. Nico's been handcuffed into long third down situations, threw for $169, no touchdowns, 1 interception against Arkansas, right? That's a problem. Struggled against Florida as well. That cannot be today. If he's in those type of situations, it's all Milroe. So that's why I do lean to Alabama from the spread perspective, because I have more confidence in Jalen Milroe being able to take a game over than Nico up until this point. But that might change, Kevin and Ben, from an in-game perspective if I watch the first few quarters play out.
It has not worked out that way for Nico Iamaleava or this Tennessee offense in their 3 SEC games. Through the first 3 games of this year, including the ranked matchup against NC State, who, of course, is no longer a ranked team, we thought the Vols might be a world beater offensively. 191 points in their opening 3 contests of this season, 25 points or less in all 3 SEC games. The victory margin for Tennessee in the first 3, plus 178 in terms of the overall point differential. The last 3 weeks, including the loss to Arkansas, just a plus 11. So, Lisi, back to you, because if that Alabama defense, which has been struggling throughout this year, can show some life today, it could spell trouble for the Vols. But this is not exactly the Alabama defense we have been accustomed to under Nick Saban. Do you think they rise to the occasion in this matchup against Nico and Tennessee?
I think they could do enough. Again, be looking like 13 points per game or completely shutting down Nico in the rushing attack in this matchup. No, but their secondary's been suspect. It started a couple weeks ago in the second half against Carson Beck, where they allowed that team to slip and gave up the lead 34-33. We saw Pavia in that offense move the football. And then last week as well, Lenora Sellers and South Carolina 2 weeks ago was basically shut down as a 9.5-point dog, 24-3. He put up 2 touchdowns and over 200 yards.
Yeah.
So if Nico and that rushing attack are going, that'll open up play action. I think they could do enough, but I still think in order for Tennessee to win, has to be an over.
You know, the thing also with the Tennessee team total is the fact that the only power opponent Bama has held under a team total was Wisconsin, who lost their starting quarterback on the opening drive of that game. And I think some of that is the youth and maybe Kane Womack getting adjusted. The issues for Bama are not Jalen Milroe. And, I mean, DeBoer doesn't escape it, but, you know, the offense as a whole has been great. And I'm leaning towards Tennessee.
Yeah.
If you are at this moment still kind of uninvested in the Heisman market, now I'm not as in on Bama. I bet him to miss the playoff, actually, right, at 4-1. Milroe at 14-1 is not a bad look for the Heisman Trophy. Total touchdowns. There's 3 guys at the top with 23. It's Milroe, Cam Ward, shout out Jordan McLeod of Texas State.
Yep.
That is the big 3. If Milroe grabs this win, that 14-1 number is going to come, I think, crashing down. I think you're talking about maybe getting cut in half. There's still a lot of big games for Milroe to win. And let's not forget, he still owns what I think is the best quarterback performance this college football season's offered.
Yeah, and that game and what he has done for Jalen Milroe, certainly against Georgia in those big spots, is something to pay attention to. However, 4 touchdowns to 4 interceptions in SEC games. In all 3, he has thrown those 4 INTs. 11 rushing touchdowns this year, multiple in 5 of 6, along with Navy's Blake Horvath and Bryson Daly of Army, the only 3 quarterbacks with double-digit rushing scores this season. Did want to just alert everybody to those Alabama props for this game. Ryan Williams, oddly not listed on a couple of books right now, but expected to play in this football game. He's got 39% of the total yardage that Jalen Milroe has thrown for this year. An intriguing one in Fayetteville. It's up next.
That kid on the 2-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallized Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Might the Hogs, as the Dogs, be wild once again in Fayetteville on this third Saturday in October as we welcome you back to college football today, live right here on SportsGrid. LSU outlasting Ole Miss in a wild overtime thriller last week in another night game that delivers inside Tiger Stadium. Garrett Nussmeier, who was not great in the game, strikes at the very end to find Kyron Lacey for a walk-off touchdown in Baton Rouge. Because of it, LSU now a top 10 team, ranked 8th in the country, and they take that new ranking on the road to match up against Arkansas. Joe Lisi, this line has been all over the place all week. 2.5 at its open, always under a field goal. Became a virtual pick'em just about 48 hours ago, and now on this Saturday, as we get ready for prime time in Fayetteville, working back to the Bayou Bengals, a 2.5-point spread, and if you want to keep it under that flat number of 3, you got to pay a pretty hefty penny of juice on that number. How do you believe LSU and Arkansas match up tonight in Fayetteville?
Well, close game. Last two games have been decided by a total of 6 points, 3 points apiece. Last year was 34-31. KJ Jefferson lit up that secondary, but you got Arkansas coming out of a bye week. Last win was against Tennessee. That was a dominant defensive effort to contain Nico to only 14 points. And the Volunteers, they shut down the rushing attack, made them one-dimensional. And on the flip side, Nussmeier, only 47% completion percentage. If you watch an LSU game, and Kevin could attest, you need a bottle of Tums next to you because they South Carolina, Ole Miss, it doesn't get closer than that. They've won 7 of the last 8 in the series. I'll say this. This is one of my better picks for the day. I really like LSU, and it's not for the offensive perspective. It's for the defense. We saw them step up. 6 sacks last week, a total of 19, Ben, over the last 4 weeks. That defense is flying sideline to sideline. They're getting off the field on third downs. And if Nussmeier does find some success early, that could open up the rushing attack. I love Sam Pittman. I love Arkansas. I just think they're a little overmatched in this matchup. The fact that it's under 3, I think LSU wins by a touchdown.
LSU is 2 SEC wins. They're both by a field goal. If you like Arkansas, find the 3. Maybe pay for the 3. Yeah. It's not a bad idea. I looked at this game, and spread math tells me LSU's probably not getting a lot of credit heading into this game. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote in my little, I talked to myself in my notes, maybe I'm nuts, and I'm like, unless Sam Pittman's great off a bye, I probably got to play the Tigers. And then it's just, ha, 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 ha. Sam Pittman is a monster off a bye. He is a monster off a bye. Completely step away here because I do like this LSU team. I do. I have futures like you on them to win the conference. This, though, even for the playoff backers, you have to have this game because what follows is A&M and Bama. And if you win this game, you can survive that split. But I think that's a split. I don't think LSU, I don't know, I'm really struggling to see a world with what I've seen from them that they're going to sweep at A&M and hosting Alabama.
Yeah.
You pair in an Arkansas, and again, like the Razorbacks might get ranked if they beat LSU here.
For sure.
It's still not going to be something where you hold your head up like, hey, man, come on now. Arkansas is a great team. Like, no, you lost, and that's not good enough here. Huge one for LSU season. Kind of lean Razorbacks.
A huge one for LSU season, and they beat Colin Wu Pig Sooie as an underdog. 4-0 against the spread as a dog this year. 2 of those outright victories, the upset in a big way against Tennessee and an early season win against Auburn. They're covering by nearly 8.5 points per game as an underdog with Sam Pittman. Since the start of 2020, 21-9 ATS. It is the best among power conference programs in all of the sport. LSU this year as a favorite, 1-4 against the number. But Joe, to your point about defense, the numbers on LSU are not great. They're the 4th worst scoring defense still in the SEC, allowing more than 22 points per game. 3rd worst total defense, but it's much improved from where it was a season ago. 6 sacks last week. Did you see the stat line for LSU's Whit Weeks, by the way? 18 total tackles, a bunch of sacks, and a couple of tackles for loss in that game against Ole Miss. News for Arkansas quickly here. Taylor Green, who was injured in the 4th quarter of the upset against the Vols, used the bye week to get healthy, expected to play, Joe. How much of a challenge do Taylor Green and Jaquindon Jackson present to this Tigers defense?
Well, he's athletic, so if he catches the edge the way he did against Oklahoma State, he could take a game over just the way Jalen Milroe does, and that opens up the play-action passing attack. They need to contain Taylor Green, keep him in long 3rd down, still struggles with completion percentage.
I am buying low on Taylor Green over 35.5. He had 81.3 yards per game through the first 4 weeks of the season. Good buy low spot.
266 plus in all 3 against ranked opponents through the air this year as well. Around the Big Ten, next.
That kid on the 2-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallized Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
If this third Saturday in October is a significant one in the SEC, last Saturday, the second in October, was a big one in the Big Ten. We go back to last Saturday night, and we start inside Autzen Stadium. For all that we saw between Ohio State and Oregon in the second game of the year that lived up to the billing in what it now means for the Big Ten Conference and, of course, the chase for a college football playoff. Oregon victorious as a field goal underdog at home, 32-31. The infamous now 12th man on the field penalty that the NCAA has already closed the loop hole on. Glad you guys handled that and not NIL in the transfer portal, but that remains a different story for a different day. Oregon victorious 32-31 as Will Howard scrambles with 6 seconds left and slides as time expires. Oregon has also played another game since last Saturday. Last night on the road in West Lafayette, avoiding any bit of an upset special against Purdue, winning 35-0, even covering as a 29.5-point favorite. Kev, I start with you because you were a little bit more critical of the Ducks throughout this season in terms of their big picture outlook to be a true college football playoff national championship contender. What have you seen out of Oregon in the last 7 days?
Well, you're right, I was, and I was proven correct, and I said, though, going into the game, it didn't mean they were incapable of beating Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's just, again, Oregon had preseason pricing as if they were Ohio State, Georgia good. And I don't think they are. And I don't think this result, by the way, changes that. Like, I understand how we do rankings, and Oregon belongs in front of Ohio State now. Beating a team by 1 in your building in that fashion, like, if you told me, hey, line these two teams up tomorrow on a neutral field and you favor Oregon, I think that would be a mistake.
Yeah.
I do. So, for the Ducks, it's a monster win. It's easily the biggest win Dan Lanning's ever had in his career, right? I mean, I don't even know what the close second would be. Probably beating like Colorado by a ton of points. I mean, honestly. So it's great for Oregon. The way the Big Ten schedule's lined up now, Lisi, this team should go unbeaten. I know that's, it's easier said than done. They're 7-0. There's only 5 remaining. That Michigan game, which I know a lot of us had circled, again, the Wolverines are on their third quarterback here. The Ducks are huge favorite to make that Big Ten title game. I don't see any way they don't.
No, I don't either. And they're minus 2,000 to make the college football playoff. They're leading everybody right now after last night's matchup. They're running the football more consistently with Jordan James. They're protecting Dylan Gabriel. Remember, when they struggled against Idaho and Boise State, their offensive line was atrocious. What was it, 7 sacks in the first 3 games? They only have 9 allowed now. So they've shifted around players. They found some continuity, and they have success. And Dylan Gabriel, that's the added dimension, right? He's a battle-tested quarterback that has big game experience. He proved that again last Saturday night. He did it with his arm and his legs. And I think this team is trying. I thought this was the best team on paper at the start of the year. I did believe in them. We'll see how it plays out. Again, I still think it's a tough schedule because you never know. In college football, 28-point dogs knock off favorites all the time. You never know. But right now, best team right now.
Like Texas in the SEC, Oregon entering the year in its first in the Big Ten had the second best price to win that conference crown. Now a co-favorite alongside Ohio State, who is a minus money favorite to win the Big Ten championship entering last week in Eugene. Ohio State had allowed 34 total points in its first 5 games. The competition level, probably not all that drastic. They allowed 32 last week to Oregon. And again, the Ducks cruise into West Lafayette. So there's the good. There's an Oregon team now at minus 2,000 to reach the college football playoff. And Kev, there's also the beauty of this new era in college football. The atmosphere not diminished by any means for another game of the year last week inside Autzen Stadium. And we look at Ohio State's odds. Still a co-favorite to win the Big Ten. Still minus 700 to reach the college football playoff. A better national championship price still than that of Oregon, the second best, only behind Texas at plus 450. So that's all that you can say. There's all of the optimism behind it, but it might not be enough for those Buckeye faithful in Columbus. Ryan Day now 61-9. in his 6 full seasons as Ohio State's head coach, but all 9 losses against ranked foes, 2-6 straight up against AP top 5 opponents. How much of this mounting pressure continues to build on Ryan Day and Ohio State this year?
The standard is a standard, right? I mean that again, like he is not anywhere other than Ohio State, and this is what comes with being the head coach of the Buckeyes. You know, he cannot at the end of this season like, come on, made the playoff, beat Michigan. Again, Michigan is a tire. He should beat that team by 70 points, unless the danger man's back in. Then that probably covered the number. But you lose to Oregon. Ohio State now has this trip to Penn State on deck. And again, it's kind of funny the way the season is, broke out for the Big Ten. They could lose that game. They'll probably still get into the playoff with a 10-2 record, 0 big wins, unless, I don't know, like they could end up getting lucky with like wet timing of a Nebraska game and a timing of an Indiana game. It could work out in their favor. But in the same vein, I still think that Ohio State is a Tier 1 team in college. I think they flashed that against Oregon. I thought they were significantly better than Iowa, and I thought they were right to pull away there. But I still think, and I know for you, you'll feel a little differently, like I was really surprised that Ohio State is co-favorites to win the Big Ten. I was super excited to lurk and grab a nice 3-1 number on them to win this conference. Now I look at it and say, hold on a minute now. You already have the loss. They're not going to lay a touchdown, 10 at Penn State.
No.
And again, a loss there, their DOA, I'm surprised at how much respect we're still seeing for Ohio State in the market.
Well, from a talent perspective, they're deserving to be there. I think they're head and shoulders above some other teams in the conference, and you can make the argument that they're still better on paper if they played 100 times than Oregon, but Oregon did get the victory.
Yeah.
I think when you look at it, and Kevin's right, like no big wins, right? They lose to Penn State. They have no big wins. I'm just saying.
Debatable.
Well,
I mean, Ohio State is off this week. They host Nebraska next week. We'll see where Nebraska is, and they enter that football game. They've got a ranked Indiana team on the schedule, and they've got the game. Right. Michigan might not be a great team this year, but it still is the game.
Right.
I'm saying they've got big spots to solidify that resume.
Right. It's possible. I'll just say this in regards to Ryan Day, and Kevin's right. It started when they lost the game to Georgia, right, and carried through. When you can't beat Michigan and you can't step up in these games, there's the added pressure, right? And then now to have the best price in the Big Ten and have the best price to potentially win an NCAA title, that matters. That matters.
I'll say this. I actually think that that game against Georgia is maybe like his crowning moment.
It was, but again,
he just loses every game to Michigan. Like they beat Penn State, but who cares? Like going and that game against Georgia.
But he played for the field goal.
Played for the field goal. I'll still never get over that final drive that we watched together on New Year's Eve with C.J. Stroud.
Doesn't have Ryan Day doesn't have a lot of great moments. It's like beating a Notre Dame
for sure.
He lost Oregon at home. This is one of the interesting things. He has not made Columbus a fortress.
No.
Like it is not like if you look at the advantages of being at home in the Big Ten, right?
Yep.
There's not a ton of them. It's just who's ever the best team in the Big Ten, which is, again, an odd thing. Here's what I'll say to you, though, Ben, right? In the same way, like, it could work out for them. If Indiana beats Nebraska, it's an unranked win. It won't mean a thing,
for sure,
right?
But Indiana's still on the docket.
100%.
Yeah.
But you know how that works.
I know.
They play Indiana. They beat them by 21. And then Indiana was never good. And that's unfair to Indiana and Ohio State. I just look at this for Ohio State where none of this has to matter. Do what you always do. Beat Penn State and get the rematch against Oregon. Yeah. Beat them as well. Get ranked first or second when we come CFP time and handle your business.
And the reason I bring that up as well is because this final 6-game stretch now for Ohio State is more difficult than we expected. They host Nebraska next week. They make the road trip to start off November to State College to take on Penn State, who survived last week in overtime against USC. The Nittany Lions perfect, 6-0 once again for a second consecutive season. We'll go to the Big Ten and a battle in Bloomington up next.
That kid on the two-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallized Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else. and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
A Big Ten battle today in Bloomington. The first home sellout inside Memorial Stadium for Indiana in 3 years, since 2021. Almost a ranked top 25 tilt, but it is not quite. Nebraska just on the outside of the AP poll looking in. Indiana is ranked. The Hoosiers are 16th in the country. Indiana is perfect, unbeaten, 6-0 for the first time in more than half a century since 1967. That is the immediate turnaround that Curt Cignetti has provided for this Indiana team. Joe? The Hoosiers and the Huskers today at noon Eastern time in Bloomington. Nearly a touchdown spread in favor of IU. Total working its way down. 50.5 has now become 49 and a hook. How do you break down this Big Ten showdown between Indiana and Nebraska?
Oh, this is a great game. 12 o'clock, it's going up against Miami and Louisville. You got to have 3 screens to watch all these games play out, and it's probably the most entertaining and the biggest game in Bloomington in the last decade, outside the Michael Penix Penn State win during the COVID year. I can't think of a bigger possible win against a top 25 opponent. I will say both teams doing it with defense. Nebraska's only given up 2.7 yards per carry against opposing offenses. Indiana only allowing 84 rushing yards per game. The quarterbacks are playing well. Raiola, 66% completion percentage. He's maturing every week. And the kid from Ohio, Curtis Rourke, has been a huge addition to that offense. They're averaging well over 450 total yards per game. This game comes down to me, Ben, in the trenches. Which team is going to win it in the trenches? And that's where I give the edge, and the significant edge, unfortunately, to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. It's not to take away from Indiana and what they've been able to do. 6 wins. They were 5.5 win total.
Yeah.
They're already bowl eligible. Dark horse for a Big Ten championship if you want to take that lottery ticket. But where's the marquee win? Maryland, Northwestern, FIU that lost to Monmouth. I just don't see it, and I don't want to slight them. I'll just say I think Nebraska's the strongest team that they have played in the interior, and that's why I give the edge to the Cornhuskers.
There's no doubt, but if I may, one of the reasons I love what we do is because you look at Indiana's schedule, and it is not difficult what they have done in their opening 6 games. You might say to yourself, everybody should be 6-0 with this schedule, and you're probably correct. But when we do things driven through the odds, you put things into perspective. Indiana has been a favorite in all 6 of those games. They are 5-1 against the spread. The one non-cover was their opening game of the season against FIU, closing as a 24.5-point favorite, and won that game by 24, because that is the argument against the Hoosiers. Who have they played? And Nebraska is their toughest test. But when we do things through the odds, they have matched expectation and exceeded it, Kev.
Yeah, and I had another thing through the odds. Matt Rule so far with Nebraska, 4 games against ranked opponent, 0-4 against the number.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit concerning to me. I think you are seeing top of the market on Indiana. It's 6.5. You could pay for 7. If it was 7.5, I'd probably put the Cornhuskers on my card.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to play Dylan Raiola, though, over 1.5 passing touchdowns here. He was over this number consistently to start the season. Drops off a little bit over the last 2. So you have a bit of a bounce-back spot. But you do have an Indiana defense. And this is kind of where it's like, if the schedule's soft, well, what weak points are we seeing against a soft schedule? Multiple passing touchdowns for Billy Edward through 3. Northwestern, it puts 2 passing scores on the table as well. So I like Raiola through the air. I think you could play his yardage, but I'm going to play Dylan Raiola over the 1.5 passing touchdowns in this game. That really does let us know who is the 4th Big Ten team in this CFP race. Because you and I actually talked about this last week off air. We have a ranked game in the Big Ten remaining. Like, if Ben's top 10 extended to top 25, that would not be a ranked game, and he'd be doing a much better job than the 8th poll. There's your compliment that you've been waiting for.
Thank you.
This is a bigger game here in Indiana and Nebraska. It's why we're doing it first. It's why we're giving it bigger coverage than this upcoming game.
Absolutely so. Look at the playoff odds for these 2 teams. Look at where they stand in the Big Ten title race. Nebraska is 5-1 this year. The only loss at home on that Friday night against a ranked opponent in Illinois, who remains inside the AP top 25. Here's the key for Dylan Raiola and Nebraska. When you look at this Cornhuskers team, they are built on the defensive side of the football. Raiola in his first 2 Big Ten games, at least 257 yards through the air. Last time they were on the field over 2 weeks ago against Rutgers at home, 13 of 27, $134 and an INT, maybe his most true freshman-esque game that we have seen out of Raiola in his college career. Curtis Work is not a freshman. He is very experienced, and he has thrown for more than 305 yards in all 3 Big Ten games for Indiana, multiple passing touchdowns, at least 3 passing scores in all 3 of those games. Luke Altmaier did throw for 4 against the Huskers in that game about a month ago. And, Joe, this is where Indiana is really good. Offensively, they're the 2nd best scoring offense in the country. They're top 10 in terms of yardage as well. In fact, they are incredibly balanced. They and Ole Miss, the Hoosiers and the Rebs, the only 2 teams in the country averaging 300 passing yards per game or more, and more than 200 on the ground. You highlight winning it in the interior. How does Nebraska slow down IU today?
Well, I think they do exactly what they did against Shedeur Sanders in Colorado. They held that team to basically 10 points. The back end was very successful, playing a lot of zone. Indiana does a great job, Ben, of dictating tempo. They jump up early to force teams to play from behind. I don't think they're going to be able to do that, even though they're at home against that front 7. I think they could get quarterback pressures and play a lot of zone, and this might be a lower scoring game. And I'll take you want to give me 6.5 with the road team? I'll take that any day of the week.
But here's the deal, right? Let's say you get your cover, but they still win this game. Indiana, before the Northwestern game, 55-1 to go unbeaten, plus 1650, plus 550 to make the playoff, plus 240. If they win this game, they just need to win their remaining games as a favorite. They probably get in, because they will be booked as favorites over Michigan at home, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I just want to say, and that would put a lot of pressure on Penn State and Ohio State, because if they're going to be an at-large that only has potentially 1 loss,
for sure,
that these other teams need to step up.
Absolutely so. That plus 240 price, one of the 20 best in the country for IU. But they haven't seen a defense quite like the Huskers this year. 7th best scoring defense in the country, one of 13 teams allowing less than 275 yards per game. Haven't allowed a rushing score this year. Tony White's defense, Tyson Lawton and Justice Ellison, they can get in the end zone, however. That ranked versus ranked Big Ten battle next.
That kid on the two-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallized Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Here on college football today on this third Saturday in October on SportsGrid. Joe Lisi, Kevin Walsh, and Ben Stevens. We started with what is the best Big Ten football game of the day. It's not the ranked versus ranked matchup. That one's in Champaign. It's Illinois and Michigan. Somehow, some way, the Illini still rank. The same story for the Maize in blue. Both staying in the top 25 entering this game, but should be a good one in Illinois. Now, a 4.5-point spread, Kev, in favor of the Wolverines on the road. Total on its way up as well, 44.5. It might seem like a Big Ten battle on paper. You're going to watch the Illini honor Red Grange in their throwback uniforms today and expect this game to not highlight the forward pass and be 7-3. But Michigan off the bye, making yet another starting quarterback change. The guy I think they wanted to be the starter all year long but was not healthy, that's Jack Tuttle, the Indiana transfer, now the starter for Michigan against this Illinois team that had to go to overtime to hold off Purdue a weekend ago. How do you see this matchup today in Champaign playing out?
Now, you just threw me for a loop. You're the Big Ten guy, so I'm fine deferring to you, but I will need a little bit of extra information.
Please.
You're telling me they wanted Tuttle to be the quarterback all year long?
By all reports, with the way that fall camp played out, and I think the inability to name the danger man, Alex Orji, the starter, and give it to Davis Warren, and the indecision to do so until the final hour before the opener against Fresno State, there was some speculation that all offseason they trusted the experienced Jack Tuttle the most. Not saying he's going to throw for 350 today because they think he is that guy or even J.J. McCarthy-esque, but I think they trusted him the most under center.
Again, just through reading what was available, felt that they were hoping Alex Orji would be their quarterback, and that's why it was a stunner when they ultimately were going with Davis Warren to open the season. And here's the thing. I know it'll seem like I'm covering for the danger man. Let's also be realistic. It's Alex Orji, right? There's not like massive positions invested in Alex Orji. I'm just evaluating what's in front of us. This has been nothing other than a complete failure by this coaching staff. And I don't know how else you describe it. You want to blame Harbaugh for leaving them when he did, that they weren't able to bring in a high-level transfer? Okay, maybe. They played 6 games. They're on their third quarterback. That is inexcusable. You open the year with Davis Warren. That was a mistake right away. You could tell it was just run the ball with Edwards, Mullings, and Orji. And eventually, okay, they realize that they should get the ball to Alex Orji, and that's exactly what they do. And now all of a sudden, it's like, all right, I think we've probably salvaged this thing. And then they go to Washington. They get down 14-0 and bench Alex Orji. And I know people, oh, come on, they came right back. Tuttle. Yeah, and then Tuttle's last 2 possessions of the game in a 1-possession game were fumble pick. So they didn't get that answer right either. Again, I am very tempted to sit and be like, if they had Alex Orji playing in every game, they'd be unbeaten, and I know we would all then go nuts at me. I think they'd probably be in a better position had they just accepted what they had at their disposal and embraced it from the jump.
Yep.
And that is 2 limited passers and then a really limited passer who's a great athlete. Stick with the athlete, stick with the ground game, and that, Joe, offensive inability is covering for a defense that has not flirted with living up to the preseason expectations. I saw yesterday a top 100 players in college football list that had Will Johnson and Mason Graham both ranked inside the top 20. Well, then the other 9 guys are the worst players in this entire sport because the defense has been bad all year. This Michigan staff should be embarrassed with the product that they've put out through the first 6 weeks.
Yeah, well, Sharon Moore's a first-year, technically head coach, right? So, but again, it's an identity problem. I mean, that's the thing. They have to find their identity offensively and defensively. I think when you look at the series perspective, they've dominated Illinois. They've won 6 straight. The last 4 by 24.7 points per game. Illinois has given up 2 teams now in Purdue and previously where they allowed 200 rushing yards per game. Yep. They allowed Ryan Brown to throw for close to 300 and 3 touchdowns and didn't cover as a 22.5-point favorite in Champaign last week. The Michigan's coming out of a bye. I think they get back to basics, Kev. I think they do, in fact, run the football, work off of play action. I would lay the 3.5 in this matchup. I think they grind out a victory. I could see it 27-23.
Yeah, I actually think we get some points in this game as well, Joe. I think there's 2 things that these defenses do not do well. Michigan, one of the best passing defenses in the country a year ago. They're getting gouged this year. 4th worst scoring defense in the Big Ten. The Illini, not great at defending the run, over 150 yards per game on the ground. Total's working its way up. I still think we see some offense. Hour number 2 up next on College Football Today.
That kid on the 2-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallized Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.